of the board of Streaming Inspiration Broadcast Network, located here in North Carolina. I want to welcome you to one of our chairman of the board of Streaming Inspiration Broadcast Network, located here in North Carolina. I want to welcome you to one of our
The recording has started. This session is no longer being recorded.
Good afternoon. Trying to figure out if I'm going to get a tornado through my backyard or not. Yeah, they've got warnings up and everything, and it's kind of looking kind of interesting out there, but I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, well, it is springtime, so come on, No, 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 not at all. No, you know the old expression, the show must go on. Well, if you hear anything in the background that sort of sounds like a freight train or something, but I'm fine. It'll be fine. Do you have a guest coming? You and me against the world. Sometimes it's ain't no biggie. Ain't none. Ain't nothing. We'll make it happen. See there, we open your eyes, and now you're branching out in all kinds of different directions. Fantastic. Now all we got to do is get you in front of a camera. Nah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Good. Good. Well, see, you got it all beat then. Good. Yeah, I hear that expression all the time. One of these days, I guess I'm going to meet Shirley, but, I haven't met her yet. Yeah. No, I'm in a pretty good mood today, as you can tell, so. Yeah, I try. I try real hard, so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're getting it here hard too. We are. We're getting hit real hard with it. Yeah. Oh no. Well, I've got a whole backyard full of trees, and they're all budding at the same time. So. Mm-hmm. No, they're past the Rubicon. There ain't no going back for these. It's all green back there. Yeah, they have crossed the Rubicon, and ain't no turning back, and everything's green back there. The spring green, the real kind of bright green. So, yeah. All right. Well, look, if you're ready to roll, I'm ready. I got your music all queued up, and well, you always keep coming up with music I have not heard in years. Yeah. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and watch this. Well, even the opening frames, of the video, with the what's obviously some kind of an inner city scene with that old beat up 1970 something station wagon in the background. So, yeah, so I can kind of see it. It's kind of interesting. Of course, like I said, growing up in Detroit, scenes like that are very familiar to me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, what it reminded me of, what little I actually saw of the video, what it reminded me of, again, I think I told you before, I grew up in Detroit during the 68 and 69 riots. And, I remember one day getting in trouble and getting called to my principal's office for something. I don't even know what I did now. And when I walked in there, he had a pistol sitting on his desk. Oh, yeah, he wasn't playing. He made a comment about, the children's safety is my first responsibility, and he had a pistol sitting right there on his desk. I'm like, okay. Yeah, really, Yeah, yeah. But that was him. That was the way he was, and he was serious. Hey, you ain't playing with my kids here. You know. So, anyway, it's that time, so we got to get you on the way. So let's go ahead and I'll fire up your music. What do you want? About a minute and a half, 2 minutes? All right. All righty. Well, let's get the show on the road. All right. I'll talk to you later.
And welcome to Itsy Bitsy Bookworms Radio, where we are all about the kids. I am Pamela Hornsby Irvin, author, educator, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. I will be your host for the next hour. So, listeners, now is your time to grab a pen, pencil, notebook, and some paper so that you can write down information that I am sure you can use. So, without further ado, we're going to get the show started. I am the guest and the host for today, everybody, and I'm going to discuss dyslexia in children. Dyslexia in children is type of the hour. So, through your child's eyes, it's one thing to read about learning and attention issues. It's another thing to see them through your child's eyes. Experience firsthand how frustrating it is when your hand won't write what your brain is telling it to, or how hard it is to complete a simple task when you have trouble focusing. So if you could just do for me after the hour, go to understood.org and just take a listen to some of the stories that the children would like to share in regards to them and their dyslexia challenges. So you would say, what is dyslexia? Well, dyslexia is, we're going to just kind of take a snapshot, is a specific learning disability in reading. Kids with dyslexia have trouble reading accurately as well as fluently. They may also have trouble with reading comprehension, spelling, and writing. You know, raising a child with dyslexia is a journey. As you move through it, you will gain a lot of knowledge about your child's challenges with reading and about many ways that you can help your child succeed at school and in life. Dyslexia is a lifelong condition that makes it difficult for people to read. Its most common learning issue, although not clear what percentage of kids have it. Some experts believe the number is between 5 and 10%. Others say it's as many as 17% of people that actually show signs of reading issues. The reason for the wide range is that experts may define dyslexia in many different ways. Dyslexia is mainly a problem with reading accurately and fluently, but kids with dyslexia may have trouble answering questions about something that they've read. But when it's read to them, they may have no difficulty at all. Dyslexia can create difficulty with other skills. And these other skills include reading comprehension, spelling, writing, and math. People sometimes believe that dyslexia is a visual issue. They may think of it as kids reversing letters or writing backwards. But dyslexia is not a problem with vision or with seeing letters in the wrong direction. It's important to know that while dyslexia impacts learning, it's not a problem of intelligence. So let's not get this confused, everybody. Dyslexia has nothing to do with a child's intellect. Now, there are times when children will write their letters backwards. It's a common occurrence when your child is a little one. 2, 3, 4-year-olds tend to write certain letters backwards. But as they progress on to kindergarten and first grade, this habit and process should be reduced. So kids with this issue are just as smart as their peers. Many people have struggled with dyslexia and gone on to have successful careers. That includes a long list of actors, entrepreneurs, elected officials, and later on in the show, I'm going to talk about some of those individuals. If your child has dyslexia, he or she won't outgrow it, but there are support, teaching approaches, and strategies to help your child to overcome the challenges, okay? And first and foremost, try to see dyslexia through your child's eyes. You know, parents, research, search, and get answers to common questions about dyslexia. You can explore a collection of dyslexia success stories, all of that, and read them to your child if your child has dyslexia or if you may think that your child has dyslexia. So, dyslexia impacts people in varying degrees. So, symptoms may differ from one child to another, like any other disability, or challenge. This is no different. Generally, symptoms show up as problems with accuracy and fluency in reading and spelling. But in some kids, listen to this, in some kids, dyslexia can impact writing, math, and language as well. The key sign of dyslexia in kids is trouble decoding words. This is the ability to match letters to sounds and then use that skill to read words accurately and fluently. Have you seen the little worksheets that have a letter on one side, and then they have the sounds, the phonetic sounds on the other, and you're supposed to match them, from one side of the paper to the next? These are the things that children with dyslexia have issues completing. One reason kids have difficulty decoding is that they often struggle with more basic language skills called phonemic awareness. This is the ability to recognize, and I mispronounced that. This is the ability to recognize individual sounds and words. Trouble with a skill can show up as early as preschool, and we're going to talk about that too. We're going to read about all of this in just a little bit. In some kids, dyslexia isn't picked up until later on when they have trouble with more complex skills. This may include grammar, reading comprehension, reading fluency, sentence structure, and more in-depth writing. One potential sign of dyslexia is when kids avoid reading. They absolutely do not want to read, and what's even more terrifying for them is when they have to read out loud and to others, as well as themselves. They just want to run away from reading. They don't want to take aim at reading because it's such a challenge for them. Kids may even get anxious or frustrated when reading. This can happen even after they've mastered the basics of reading. Signs of dyslexia can look different at different ages. So I'm going to give you some examples of what the signs are for different age children. So if you have a child that's in preschool, the preschooler may have trouble recognizing whether two words rhyme. Blue, who, high, by, words like that. And they also may struggle with taking away beginning sounds from a word, struggles with learning new words, and have trouble recognizing letters and matching them to sounds, like I spoke a little bit about earlier, the matching from one side to the other. Now, if you have a grade schooler, your grade schooler might have trouble taking away the middle sound from a word or blending several sounds to make a word. Often cannot recognize common sight words, stop, go, up, down, and quickly forgets how to spell many of the words that he or she has already studied previously, and gets really, really confused when trying to find solutions to word problems. Very difficult for them. So normally with dyslexia, it's not just dyslexia by itself. There's often other challenges that co-occur with dyslexia. So many kids have more than one learning and attention issue. There are a number of issues that often co-occur with dyslexia. So we're going to talk about those. There are also issues that have symptoms that can look like dyslexia symptoms, but are not. So the best way to find out if your child is actually dyslexia or has dyslexia, you need to have your child tested, because it can actually present itself as something else just from the naked eye without being tested. So here are some issues that often co-occur with or may be mistaken for dyslexia. So let's talk about ADHD. ADHD can make it difficult to stay focused during reading and other activities. So I would say roughly 40% of students with ADHD also have dyslexia. But kids with dyslexia may fidget or act out in class because of frustration over reading. It's not the ADHD. Again, if you have a child that is has dyslexia, then they're challenged with the writing. They don't want to, that the reading, they don't want to read. They don't want to write. So in order to prevent them from reading or writing, they just do things to distract from that particular lesson at the time. So let's talk about executive functioning issues. That's different skills and areas of learning. It includes, now executive functioning issues include organization, being organized, flexible thinking, and a working memory. You know, not just, when I said before, kids with dyslexia forget what it is they studied. So that delves into the working memory. It's a challenge for them to have that working memory, for them to remember, and flexible thinking. So, for instance, you know, that oh, if I go to this door to get out and it's locked, well, then how am I going to get out of the building? So right away, they may not be able to find the resolution or think about, oh, okay, well, let me go to another door. I know there's another door in the building that's perhaps unlocked, and I can walk out that door. That door will lead me to the outside. So they have children with dyslexia suffer from those issues. It can be challenging for them. Slow processing speed can impact reading as well as many other areas of learning. Kids who struggle with processing speed are slower to take in, to process and respond to information. That can make it harder to master basic reading skills and get the meaning of what they have read. It takes them a longer time to actually process what they have even read or what anybody else has read. And two, we're going to discuss the auditory processing disorder. This affects the child's ability to sort through the sounds she hears or he hears. This can make reading difficult. Kids with auditory processing disorder, which is otherwise known as APD, often have trouble recognizing the difference between letters and sounds and sounding out new words. Also, another challenge that can co-occur with dyslexia is visual processing issues. This makes it hard to process what the eye sees. Kids with visual processing issues may complain of blurry vision of letters, hopping around on the page. They may try to compensate by squinting or closing one eye. They often reverse letters when writing and struggle to stay within the lines. So, what I just spoke of are all issues that can co-occur with dyslexia and really need to be taken a look at when and if you feel like that your child may be challenged with dyslexia. So here's some of the causes of, or I should say possible or probable causes of dyslexia. Researchers haven't yet pinpointed exactly what causes dyslexia, but they do know that the genes in the brain has different roles. They play different roles. And here are some of the possible causes of dyslexia. Again, we just spoke about genes and heredity. Dyslexia often runs in families. About 40% of siblings of kids with dyslexia have the same reading issue. As many as 49% of parents of kids with dyslexia have it too. Scientists have also found a number of genes linked to the issues with reading and processing language. Wow, that's interesting. That's something that I didn't realize until I started the research on dyslexia. It is actually hereditary, and it's within the genes. So there's some of the answer that lies right there for parents who are just wondering how their child came about with dyslexia. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the brain anatomy and activity. So brain imaging studies have shown that brain differences between people with and without dyslexia. These differences occur in areas of the brain involved with key reading skills. Those skills are knowing how sounds are represented in words and recognizing what written words look like. The brain can change, however. This concept is known as neuroplasticity. Okay? Studies show brain activity in people with dyslexia changes after they get the proper tutoring. And scientists are learning this more all the time. How dyslexia is diagnosed, because remember, you want your child to be tested for dyslexia if you see any of those symptoms and signs in your child. So not being able to read words, not staying focused, transposing words, all of that, the slow processing. You want to make sure, you want to have your child tested to make sure to find out exactly what it is. If in fact it's dyslexia or one of the other issues that can co-occur with dyslexia. So the only way to know for sure if your child has dyslexia is to have your child fully evaluated, either at school or privately. So most of the time, school evaluations are free. Having a diagnosis, school calls it identification, which can allow your child to get supports and services at school. This includes specialized instruction reading, and for first and foremost, specialized instruction in reading, okay? Now, there's a difference between a school identification and a clinical diagnosis. Before you go for the evaluation, however, it's important to rule out any other medical problems that might be at play. So your doctor can check your child for vision and or hearing problems. There are a few types of professionals that can assess kids for dyslexia. So you can have your child tested through school, have your child evaluated through your school. That's free. But if you have your child evaluated privately, that will cost you. I'm not sure if your medical plan will cover that or not. That's something that you would have to check with your medical provider to find out. So there are a few types of professionals who can assess kids for dyslexia. So these include psychologists, clinical psychologists, pediatric neuropsychologists. Your child's evaluator will give him or her a series of tests for dyslexia. He'll also assess your child in other areas to see exactly where his or her weaknesses lie. So a psychologist will also look for other issues that might be getting in the way of him or her learning. These include ADHD, which I just discussed a few minutes ago as one of the challenges that co-occur with dyslexia, and mental health issues. Now, ADHD, here we go again, often co-occurs with dyslexia. Some kids with learning and attention issues also have anxiety and or depression. You may be asked for family history. You may be also asked to fill out questionnaires about your child's strengths and weaknesses because they want to know about your child. You have to give them a visual of what your child is like. You have to paint them a picture of what your child is like via answering these questions in the questionnaire. So, and your child's teacher may be asked to provide information on what he or she is seeing and observing in the classroom with your child. A specialist or the evaluation team at the school will look at all the results together. Okay, they will compound all the results together to make a diagnosis. Okay, so the teacher will also recommend ways to help your child. So will the specialist. At school, this may result in your child getting an individualized education program. That is called an IEP. IEP. So IEP is there for your child to be able to get that specific care and education that's required in order to help your child master the subject matter within the classroom. So, again, we talk about the number of professionals who might help your child with dyslexia, both in and out of school. They focus on different things: instruction, intervention, school support and services, counseling, and diagnosis. There are no medications or medical treatments for dyslexia, so there is no need for any type of medications to be given. The professionals that will assist your child will be reading specialists, speech and language pathologists, child psychologists, child neuropsychologists, special education teachers. This will be your team. This will be your team that's going to work with your child one-on-one to help he or she to master the subject matter in the classroom. So now you have a team of people that can help your child with learning. Now, there are specific teaching methods to help kids with dyslexia. You may have heard about an approach called Orton-Gillingham, which is otherwise known as OG. It was the first to use instruction that is highly structured, sequential, and multi-sensory. That's very important. The multi-sensory is very important. So, a number of research-based reading programs are based on the OG, Orton-Gillingham. This type of instruction is known as multi-sensory structured language education, otherwise known as MSLE. Experts often consider MSLE the gold standard for teaching kids with dyslexia to read. One of the things this instruction focuses on is phonological awareness. This is in early language skills. This is the key to reading. Reading specialists as well as language pathologists can work with kids on building this skill. They can also help with decoding, word recognition, spelling, and reading fluency. So that decoding, that's how to put all the sounds that's needed in the word in order to speak the word. Because you have the preschoolers who, remember, they leave out the beginning of the word, and then you have the grade schoolers who leave out the middle of the word and have trouble blending them together. Well, this will help with the decoding. If your child is getting specialized instruction through an IEP, he or she is likely to be taught using these methods. An IEP plan may also include other supports like accommodations and assistive technology to help with reading. These supports can level the playing field, giving your child an equal access to what is being taught. They may have to incorporate computers, a computer program, a program that they sit at the laptop and work on. So it's various assistive techniques that they can utilize to help your child master reading within the school. If your child doesn't have an IEP, the teacher may be willing to provide informal support, or your child may get instructional interventions through RTI. Now, parents, this is very crucial because this is actually how you can help your child with dyslexia. So, of course, we already know this, right, parents, that you are your child's number one support system, source of support. From working with the school on reading skills, you can help your child gain the tools and motivation to succeed in life. Because your child has dyslexia does not mean it's the end of the world. There are a lot of folks out here with dyslexia that are very successful, and I'm going to point out some of these people a little bit later on. But because your child has dyslexia, or because you might have dyslexia, it's not the end of the world. Here are just some of the things that you can do, parents, to help your child, parents, grandparents, or caregivers of children. So it's a collective effort. Parents, if your child is with your grandparents, the grandparents, while you're working, or with a child care person, a babysitter, or whatever the case may be, let them know, get them on board as to what it is that you're doing with your child. So it's a collective effort so that your child can succeed. So here's some tips and things that you can do to help your child with dyslexia. Discover your child's strengths. Learn how to be an advocate for your child at school. Be there for your baby. Be there for your child. And let your child know that you've got them, that you've got their back, and it's not the end of the world because they have dyslexia, that everything is going to be all right, that there will be a way made for them to master whatever it is that they are learning in school. Look into where to find free audio books for your child. Discover software, apps, and Chrome tools that will help with reading. So parents, you have to get out there and you have to do your research. You have to go out and find things out there, find the tools out there that can help your child. Find ways to help your child connect letters to sound in everyday activities. Explore ways to improve your child's reading comprehension. Get tips for teaching your child to learn sight words. I mean, that's doable, parents. It's not anything that you can't do to help your child master reading and learning. You just have to put in a little bit of time and do some research. And you might have to, put in a little legwork. But you go to the library. You can go online. It's just a potpourri of information online. This information is coming from understood.org. It's just a host of information that you can help and assist your child with overcoming the, valleys in regards to, and the struggle in regards to dyslexia. Okay, so explore a collection of strategies to help your child with dyslexia. Be a parenting coach. Or I should say, seek out parenting coaches in this area. So you have so many areas, again, and avenues that you can research to help your child, to find information to help your child. It's important for you to have support too, parents, because it can be stressful for you because you have a lot that you have to do in regards to helping your child with dyslexia. It's obtainable. It's not unreasonable, but at the same time, it can be stressful and it can be tiresome. So you need to connect with other parents in the online community who have children with dyslexia, or you might have a group, within your area that you can go to, and you guys can sit down and you can discuss the challenges of raising a child with dyslexia and how it affects you as well and the rest of the family, and learn about parent training and where to pick up parenting training in regards to dyslexia. So, okay, there's some key takeaways from what I just spoke to you about. One is that dyslexia is a lifelong brain-based issue that makes it difficult for people to read. And dyslexia has various signs that look different at different ages. And there are many tools and strategies that can help your child with dyslexia succeed in school and life. So, again, let's take a look at signs of dyslexia at different ages, because this is very important, and I really hope that you guys listening will write down this information, because it's very critical and crucial when you are working with a child that has dyslexia. So when most people think about dyslexia, again, they think about struggles with reading. But dyslexia can also affect speaking, spelling, and other skills that involve language. The checklist can give you a sense of whether your child might be showing signs of dyslexia. So you can, like I said, understood.org, you can find a checklist of within your child's age group, and you can go through that checklist and see if your child is exhibiting, in fact, exhibiting signs of dyslexia. Okay? But remember, some grades, you find out earlier, and some you find out later. And sometimes you don't really find out what exactly is wrong until adulthood. So keep in mind that not every child who shows one or more signs or who struggles with reading has dyslexia. So that's why you have to get them tested and diagnosed to make sure that it's not some of the other challenges that we spoke about earlier. If you are concerned about your child having dyslexia, thinking in the back of your mind that my child just might have dyslexia, again, go to understood.org and print out the checklist and talk to your child's doctor and or teacher about what you're seeing. Okay? So, again, we're going to point out signs of dyslexia in preschoolers. They often mispronounce words. For instance, they say Betty tear in lieu of teddy bear. Okay? At once, this was considered by doctors to just be a late talker, but saying very few words by his or her second birthday is something. It's a sign. It's a red flag that goes up. In particular, if they are using baby talk. Often, your preschooler, the signs, or often has trouble naming familiar objects, general words such as thing and stuff, instead of naming the actual object, like bed or bear or chair. They will say that thing over there, or all that stuff in the middle of the floor, instead of naming the toys specifically or just simply saying toys. Your child, if your preschooler, has trouble learning a new word, even after you've tried to teach it to him or her many times. So I teach 3 and 4 year olds. I'm an early childhood educator, and we go over sight words. So we go over them regularly, 2 and 3 times a day, sometimes, and they are knowing, they are learning those sight words. They are recognizing the sight words. They are learning how to pronounce them. If the child has seen this word over and over again every day and still not able to pronounce the word, that may be a red flag. Learning new sight words after being exposed to them for a lengthy period of time is a red flag. So children, preschoolers that have trouble learning nursery rhymes or song lyrics that rhyme, or have difficulty recognizing and producing rhymes, that's a red flag. Has trouble remembering sequences, such as singing the letters of the alphabet or saying the days of the week in the right order. Or your preschooler might often tell stories that are hard to follow, has trouble talking about an event in logical order. Again, that's sequential issues. So you have to pay attention to that. Is my child imparting a story beginning, middle, and end? Or is it the end, middle, and beginning? You have to look at those and pay attention to these things when your child is actually, imparting these to you. So not just that, but other things as well. Look at everything collectively to see, because sometimes these are just developmental issues that the child will grow out of as they get older. But a sign of dyslexia in a preschooler is having trouble remembering and following directions. Well, first and foremost, make sure that you don't give a 3 or 4 year old more than a 3-step directive. Go to pick the toy up. Okay, that's it. Pick the toy up, or go to the door. But not go to the door, open the door, go outside, get the mail and the ball, come back in the house and take your coat off or something like that. That's too many directives for a preschooler, for any preschooler. So that's not a sign of dyslexia. That's just you giving the child too many directives at one time. They can't process that. And also, if your preschooler cannot point out his or her own name, as well as trouble writing it. So these are some of the things that are very important to take a look at. So, we're going to talk a little bit about how dyslexia impacts speaking. Okay, everyone has trouble coming up with the right word every now and then, right? I even make a mistake. Like earlier on, I mispronounced the word, or sometimes I can't think of a word right off. But that's normal. But if it's like that constantly, then that's a red flag. That's something that should perhaps be looked into. So another way that dyslexia impacts speaking is the child has frequent trouble with finding the right word. Okay, anxiety can sometimes make it harder for people with dyslexia to find the right word because they get frustrated. And like it said, anxiety sets up because they want to say one thing, they're thinking something, but they can't get it together and actually form the words to verbalize it. So your child is dealing with a lot. And again, go to understood.org and take a listen to some of the children that are actually living with dyslexia every day. This is their life. It's not going to go away. Remember, this is a lifelong challenge, dyslexia, but there are ways that you can make your child successful. You can lead your child to success in mastering what it is that they would like to read or that they need to learn in the classroom. It is not a situation where because you have dyslexia that you're not going to be able to survive and be successful in life. So this is how dyslexia, again, impacts speaking. Imagine you're watching television, and suddenly you recognize the face of your friend's favorite actor. You call her up immediately and say, hey, turn on your TV. It's you know the guy, that actor you love, from The Thing. Suddenly, you're at a loss for words. Even though you know who the actor is, you're experiencing a momentary problem with what experts call word retrieval or word finding. Everyone experiences this now and then, but with dyslexia, listen, it can happen. It can happen often and with all types of words. And imagine how frustrating that is for a child, because as an adult, you just got frustrated because you couldn't remember the name of the actor that you were so excited to call your friend up and say was on the television. So, a child with dyslexia can have trouble remembering, recalling, and getting out different sounds, okay? The sound combination. So they have to be able to get the words, the sound combination out in order to produce a word. Your child may say a wrong word that sounds similar to the right one, such as distinct instead of extinct, or maybe he or she will talk around it. The same kind of mental hiccup can also occur during writing. So now this not only is affecting them with their speaking, now it's affecting them when they write. Anxiety sometimes makes matters worse for kids with dyslexia. Your child's word retrieval issues can increase under pressure. Imagine being a kid and have to endure this. That's why it's important that if you feel like you are seeing signs of dyslexia in your child, please set up an evaluation to find out. Because I tell parents all the time, early diagnosis for anything, any challenge, be it autism, dyslexia, whatever it is that you are seeing in your child that you may not think is developing properly or fast enough or within the not hitting the milestones is what I'm trying to say. See, I got a hiccup. I couldn't retrieve the word that I was looking for, and it was frustrating for me. So imagine being a little kid and not being able to communicate. Students with dyslexia may find word retrieval less challenging when they have more time to respond and aren't put on the spot. So if you have a child that you ask a question and they're taking a while to answer, try to refrain from yelling at them or saying, can you hurry up? Did you hear what I said? Because they are processing what you said to them. And heaven help if they have a challenge and, you haven't realized that yet. So observe your children. I tell the parents all the time on Itsy Bitsy Bookworms Radio, where we're all about the kids, to observe your children. They tell you everything you need to know if you would just observe. Know your kids. Take time to sometimes just watch your kids. Listen to your kids. They will tell you what you need to know. If your child frequently struggles to find the right word, you can explain what word retrieval is and why he or she is having trouble with it. Awareness of a problem may help your child stay calm, making the words easier to access. Your child's teacher, reading specialist, or speech therapist should also be able to share strategies to minimize these experiences, not only with the child, but with you as well as a parent, grandparent, or caregiver. If your child has dyslexia and has a IEP, which is an individualized education program at school, he or she may be entitled to extra time on tests to complete tasks. You know what? There's no may be entitled to it. Make sure that your child receives that extra time for tests or a certain project. You have to go to the school and let them know that this is what you want for your child. Because in the beginning, what said about you being your child's support system? You, the parent, the grandparent, and the caregiver of the child, or that little one's biggest support system. And it's up to you to speak out. It's your responsibility. Speak out on behalf of that child, because that child can't speak out for themselves. They're just a little one. So they depend on you to help them. You know? So it's important to note that persistent problems with word finding are not unique to dyslexia. Word retrieval issues can also occur in people who had a stroke or brain injury. Children with ADHD, kids who stutter, and those with other specific language issues can also struggle with word retrieval and word finding. But you know this. If your child has a brain injury, has had clearly had a brain injury, well, you know about that. Okay, so it's not a surprise to you. So you understand. But here's where the frustration comes into play, is when you don't know that your child has dyslexia because your child has not been diagnosed with dyslexia. Okay, that's where the frustration comes into play, with the child being frustrated and you as the parent. So again, I cannot impress upon you enough that if you see certain signs, go and have your child evaluated. Go have your child assessed. It's free within the school system. If you go privately, you're going to have to pay. And again, I'm not so sure about the insurance that you have, if it'll pay for it or not. But like I promised earlier, I talked about naming some people that you and I know who are dyslexic. Now, I'm going to tell you about Tom Cruise. Yes, Tom Cruise, the actor, started off in such notable films as Risky Business and Top Gun. Other award-garnering performances have included Jerry Maguire and A Few Good Men. However, he's not just famous for jumping off Oprah's couch in Scientology. He is diagnosed with dyslexia at the age of 7. He was diagnosed with dyslexia at the age of 7. He struggled to complete academic studies and found his calling in acting. Okay, another one is Orlando Bloom. We all know who that is, right? If you've ever watched The Lord of the Rings or Pirates of the Caribbean, you know, he is known across the globe. Other films include Elizabethtown and Kingdom of Heaven. He is a native of Canterbury, England. He was also recently named UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. He, too, struggles with dyslexia. So let's talk about this other actor that we know, Whoopi Goldberg, okay, born Karen Elaine Johnson. Whoopi first earned her fame in the role The Color Purple a long, long time ago, for which she received an Oscar nomination. She would later go on to star in movies such as Sister Act and fulfill her dream of becoming a regular on Star Trek. Although diagnosed as a dyslexic, She is far better known as a second African-American woman to win an Oscar after Hattie McDaniel, and would later be the first woman to host them. Okay? So I'll give you, let's see, some more interesting people who have dyslexia. So listen, you make sure you tell your child and you let your child know that it's not the end of the world because they have dyslexic. This is the last person right now that I'm going to talk about. Well, I shouldn't have said that because, okay, two more. Steve Jobs. I'm sure you all know who Steve Jobs is. If you're reading this, it's asking me if I'm reading or anything from an iPhone or a Mac or whatever Apple device it's telling me that I have Steve Jobs to thank. Well, thank you, Steve Jobs. I appreciate it. You have made my life a lot easier for me. As the occasional CEO of the company, he has spearheaded some of its most famous creations. His dyslexia didn't stop him from attending college, where he met Steve Wozniak. They built a computer in the dorm and founded Apple Computers in 1976. They only had $1,300 in startup money, and the rest is history. Okay, and the last person is Magic Johnson, Irvin Magic Johnson. You know, he was born in Michigan. He worked several jobs in his youth. He showed his talent for basketball. In 1977, he won the name Magic for his ability to pass and handle that ball. After playing for Michigan State University, he would go on to become part of the Los Angeles Lakers and win 5 NBA championships. Okay? So that just goes to show you that even though you are dyslexic, you can be very successful. So I would like to read before we get out of here because time is approaching. I just would like to share this story. It's just so much about dyslexia that I was not able to get into today. But again, feel free to go to understood.org and find out some information about dyslexia, okay? Do some research about dyslexia. So, with Dr. Dyslexia Dude, this author hopes to empower kids of color. So we're going to talk about an author. Like many kids with reading issues, the author's name is Sean Robinson. He struggled in school, but he never got the help he needed. This is why it's important, parents, to please help your children through this. His dyslexia made it hard for him to keep up with his peers. His grades dropped and he started acting out in class, hoping he'd be sent out of the room. Fast forward to today, and Robinson is a researcher with a PhD in language and literacy. He also recently published a children's book that he hopes will inspire kids with dyslexia, especially kids of color. Dr. Dyslexia Dude is about a boy with dyslexia who also is a superhero. It shows him conquering challenges caused by his reading struggles. The key takeaway is that kids with dyslexia can succeed if they have the right support. Okay? Parents, talk to the schools, go to the schools, find a specialist, a pathologist, the psychologist, and all that to help your child. The name of his book, Dr. Dyslexia Dude, is based on Robinson's life, and it's also based on research that he has conducted. Robinson is a senior research associate at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. There, he studies the link between literacy and racial bias. His passion for the subject comes from his own academic journey. In school, Robinson had an IEP, but it didn't include the type of specialized instruction that helped kids with dyslexia. His frustration grew, and as time went on, so did his misbehavior. I would do anything to avoid being in class. I would pick fights. I would talk back to the teachers, he said. By the time Robinson was a sophomore, his behavior and grades were so poor that he had to leave his high school. He was placed in an alternative learning program where he improved because the work was less challenging. When he graduated from high school, Robinson was still reading at a third grade level. He said he was funneled through the system, and unfortunately that happens in a lot of school systems, especially the kids of color. Luckily, Robinson met someone who would change his life. His mother had learned about Robert Nash, a professor at a local college who helped students with dyslexia. He evaluated Robinson at the end of high school. Nash led a college-level reading program called Project Success at the university. Robinson applied and was accepted. For the first time, he got instruction designed for people with dyslexia. He quickly became a fluent reader. So I'm going to stop there for the lack of time, but you get it. Again, if you want to pick up the book, his name is Sean Robinson, and the name of the book is Dyslexia Dude, okay? It is Dr. Dyslexia Dude. So time has run out on me, guys. It has been my honor and pleasure to talk to you about dyslexia in children. Parents, make sure you tell your children, and this is for you too. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to all my listeners. Please tune in next week. Check out Parenting Tips on YouTube channel, Itsy Bitsy Bookworms with the bookworm logo. Make uplifting your child a part of your daily routine, and make sure that you tell a friend to tell a friend. May the Most High watch between you and me when we are absent from one another. Remember to have a lovely day. Peace and love, everybody.